Yo guys, in this video, we're gonna walk through Blender's camera tracker. We're gonna be tracking some vertical video, but the rules and the things I'm going to show you will also apply for horizontal video. This is a great little way if you wanna improve your TikToks or your Instagram Reels, something like that. Now this is 20 minutes taken from a full 40-minute course. So if you're interested in the full course where I walk through it a little bit slower and go through some of the problems that you may occur, it's a great deal. Take a look down below. If not, let's get straight into the video. Our first thing, we're gonna take our video and we're gonna make image sequences. We can do that inside of Blender here. I'm just gonna go to new file, go to new, and we will go to video editing. All right, so this is the footage that I wanna use. It is vertical video, so we would need to fix this here. We're gonna go to 1920, change that to 1080, and then 1920. Footage here is not lined up right, so all we do is press R90. Boom, there you go, fix that. Then I'm gonna go ahead and save this where I want it. And then from here, all we do is we go ahead and just hit render. I'm in my new file. My file may look different from yours because I've set up my own preset file, this lady here, so I can have a reference when I build things. I like to build things to scale, and this helps me set that up. But what we're going to do is you're just gonna wanna go to VFX. So if you're starting off without of course, you don't have my template here. So you would just go to File, New, VFX. I'm gonna just add in a VFX tab here. I'm just gonna go to the same thing, VFX motion tracking. We should both all be at the same tab looking at this same type of screen here. So from here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna add in our footage. All right, so what I wanna do is go ahead and set up my scene. So I can go here, set scene frames, and it will set the length automatically. There we go. And then I'm gonna go prefetch, and it's gonna basically burn it into its memory, basically using your RAM, so it can play back a little bit smoother. All right, so we got that here. Now we're basically ready to start tracking up our scene here. Again, I like to just do the Ian Herbert / CG Matter technique on this. I just modified both of the knowledge from them and made this kind of into my own style. I like to go up here, select blurry footage, even though it's not. Then I come in here, select the model to perspective. For this case, because we're gonna be looking slightly down at a perspective. There is parallax. We are moving forward. We are moving to the side, so we won't need to do a tripod mode. So I'm gonna switch this to normalize. It's gonna normalize the light on our trackers. And then I'm gonna go down to track extra settings, set the correlation to 0.9. And we're just gonna make this as easy as possible. Here now, we're gonna go detect features. Okay, and then what we're gonna do is track forward, and you can press this little button here, but I like to just press Control T on the keyboard. It's a lot quicker for me. Control T. And now we start the tracking process. We're gonna basically do this from the beginning, track forward, go to the end of the clip, track backwards, go to the middle of the clip, track forward, go to the middle of the clip, track backwards. And a lot of times I can get away with just doing that. I think we will need to add some more trackers in here though. We're losing a lot of tracks, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, now it is finished. Double tap A, deselects everything, or you could actually just press A, H, and then hide those trackers. And then again, we're gonna repeat the same thing. We're gonna go to detect features, but this time I'm gonna add in a little bit more. I'm gonna go back to distance, and I'm gonna drag to the left. Ooh, not too much. I'm gonna drag to the left. Let's maybe let's go 100, just to add in a little bit more trackers there. And I'm gonna go ahead and press Control Shift T. That's gonna track backwards. All right, so we finished that. And then like I said, we go back here in the middle. Let's go ahead and hit A, H to hide those tracks. I'm gonna go into the middle and repeat the same process. I'm gonna go detect features, and then I'm gonna track forward, go back to the middle, and then track backwards. All right, so I've completed all the tracking. I went forward, back, middle, forward, middle, back. Now I'm gonna go ahead and press A, Alt H. That's gonna unhide all of our tracks. Now we're gonna do the solve. Now let's try to get the solve here. We don't know, or I'm just kind of saying we don't know our camera data. We don't know our camera size and sensor and all that. So it's not a big deal. Blender will figure that out for us. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna come down to the solve tab. I'm gonna click focal, optical, and radio. And I'm gonna say kind of like somewhere around 170. I'm gonna go 170 to that shows that's good parallax right there. To 170 to 270. We'll go 270, right? Depending on what your footage is, finding the most parallax in the shot would be a good range to let it know. Or you can just go keyframe automatic. But I know where the parallax is, so I'm trying to just kind of give it as much information as possible to help it out. So with that being said, that's pretty much it, right? Now, what I will do here quickly, I got a couple of tracks here I see that are not even in the same ballpark, right? These ones here are way off. I'm gonna go ahead and delete those right now. I'm gonna click on it. press X, delete. Click on this one here, press X, delete, right? Because I just know those are going to be problematic. Same here, X, delete. And those are just some rogue trackers here. Even this one here, I'm going to delete that. And then another one, delete that. And I might even delete these few stragglers here. I'm going to go ahead and hit the solve button. All right, so we got our solve error, and we got a solve error of 1.6, which is actually not that bad, but I like to shoot for something like 0.3. Anything under 0.9 is decent. I like to go 0.3. That's just the thing I like to do, right? And I'm going to take off one more here. Let's take off this last one. Okay, now let's go ahead and resolve this. All right, nice. We got a 0.66 error. That's very good. Now you can see our line is pretty much really more straightened out here. I even still think we got a rogue one here at the end, like the green here. Let's go ahead and click on that, and we're going to head delete that. And this should only make it better, but sometimes it doesn't. So you just gotta and save quite frequently. So I'm gonna go ahead and save. We like this, what we got here, and solve again. That's better, 0.60. So we got 60, that's good. All right, now what we're gonna do is just come in here and really dial it up and fine tune it and clean it up. And we're gonna go to cleanup tab here. And here's our error. And if you wanna see, like, we can see these trackers, each all have an error percentage. To see that error percentage, if we click display, and then we can come down here to info, you should be able to select on one. And then here it says right here, it has an error of 0.17. So each one has an error percentage. See 0.14, those are really good solid tracks, but those are actually on the grass. So I don't know if that's good. But anyways, what we want to do here up at the top here on our dope sheet, here is all of our trackers. We see here's our error too, 6s, 3s. Now those are really not helping. So what we're going to do, I want anything that's over a 2, anything that's over a 2, I want you to select it and delete that track. Come down here, clean track. Now it deleted anything that was over a 2.0, right? And see, we got a 1.9 now, the 6 is gone. Now let's go ahead and resolve. All right, that took it down a whole point. Now we're at 0.51. Fantastic. And we're just gonna continue repeating this process until we get down to, like I said, a 3, or I like to get down to a 0.3, which would be good. All right, there's my number, 0.37. I am happy with that. And I will leave it like that. That's good. So I'm gonna go ahead and save that one more time. That's pretty much how we would go about cleaning up our tracks, trying to get the best tracks. And we still got a lot of tracks left in here, so we possibly could go lower, but I'm not gonna be too greedy. So that's it for that. Next, we're gonna go ahead and set up the camera, right? Matching the camera to the footage. All right, so now we're gonna do the match move. We're gonna match our camera to the video here. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna come in here and we're gonna hit setup tracking scene, set as background, and then if you press the O on the number pad, if you're outside, you press O on the number pad, it jumps into the camera, and this is what we see. And you can clearly see it's not set up properly. Now, what I typically do when I'm in the VFX tab, I'll come up here and make a new layout. I'll go to General Layout, and then that will open up something like this, and then you can come in here and work in your general layout for Blender. Press the number pad 0, and then jumps in the camera. And if we hit play right now, like, just nothing looks lined up, nothing is proper, right? So don't even worry about that. If you look at the playback, it's like 5 frames, 6 frames per second. That's horrible. We can't even judge if our track is working properly. So what I'm gonna do is jump back to the motion tab. And then what we're gonna come in here is click this proxy timecode button. Tab on that, scroll it down, and I wanna make it undistorted. So I go build undistorted, 50% build proxy, okay? This little blue bar down here will start loading. It's building the proxy in the background. You can continue working. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna jump back to our layout tab, and we're gonna try to orientate this here because we can clearly see this is not right and is not working properly. So what I'm gonna do is click on my camera, and then from here, I'm gonna click on the camera again. And by then, okay, boom, the bar is gone, it's fully loaded. If we click on the background image tab, scroll that down, you'll see there's a little button right here that says render undistorted. Make sure that is on, which it should be on by default. And then what I want to do is proxy render size. Click on that, and then we rendered a 50% one. If you rendered 100 or whatever, you need to click on that corresponding one. I rendered a 50, so I'm going to click on that. And then now if we hit play, boom, look at the playback, 30 FPS. One thing that's important when you are doing a vertical video track, we need to come up here to camera, scroll this down, sensor fit, changed it to horizontal. Okay, now you already see it made a big difference. Now if we hit play, okay, there we go, but it's still not lined up. No biggie, we just need to line this up here properly. So I'm going to jump back over to motion tab. I'm going to select somewhere I want to put something on this board. So I'm going to select this as my origin point. I'm going to click one tracker, set origin. Boom, there it is. And then I'm going to come here and I want to set my ground plane. So let's find, okay, so here goes 1. There's 1, there's 2, and 3. Okay, make sure you have 3 selected. If you don't, deselect everything and reselect 3. Hit floor. Now, boom, there it goes. The floor went way off in the distance, no biggie. So we got that set up. And now what I want to do is we got to match this here. It is clearly not lined up. So what I'm going to do is jump back into my layout tab. And then from here, the video is kind of ghosted, right? We can't really see it too well. Come down here, opacity, and just crank that up to 100%. Boom, there it is. Let me jump out of the camera here. And let's see quickly. Click on my camera. I'm gonna go ahead and turn on there. Where's this tab here? Motion tracking. Okay, and there it is. Okay, well, we can clearly see, look at this. Everything's way up here and that's way down there. So let's go to the front. I'm gonna go to side view. I'm gonna press 5 to go to ortho. Then we'll go G, make sure we got our camera selected. Press A, G. And kind of go like something like this, right? Let's go top view. Rotate and get everything straight. I'm gonna go G, kind of like something like that. Front view, G, Z, kind of bring the camera down. Okay, let's jump back into the camera and let's see what's going on. Okay, now we can see our tracking markers are looking nice and solid. That fits a lot better now. That's fitting a lot better now. There we go. Now let's go ahead and bring our video opacity back up. I'm gonna go back to 100% and I'm gonna select camera again. Let's go ahead and reset our origin point so we don't have to keep moving everything. So go back to motion track, come back here and select tracker. Let's select this tracker, say set origin, and that will just move our origin point up. I hope it didn't mess everything up here. Let's go. Okay, no, it didn't really mess everything up. But what origin point did we select? Okay, good. Let's delete that cube again. Number pad 0. I'm gonna put in a plane this time. Plane, rotate X, 90, right? And then I'm gonna jump in and just try to get that to see if that's lining up here. I'm gonna go to the top view. Yeah, it's okay there. Let's go to side view. Yeah, it's okay. It's a little bit rotate Z. Holding shift. Okay, there we go. Let's see what that's like. Okay, now that's sticking. Look at that. Boom. That's sticking nice and well. Now what I'm gonna do is go to background, shift A, add in another plane, go to GZ. This is gonna be our ground plane here. So let's gonna see here, jump out of our camera, and we wanna line that up basically with our ground here. Now there is another way we can actually use these trackers, these trackers to build geometry, right? Now, for example, if I delete this, let me go ahead and delete that. Let me show you how to do this. Okay, so to build geometry off of that, let's go back to our motion tracking tab. And then what we come in here and do, it's in geometry here. 3D markers to mesh, okay? So we'll go ahead and click, matter of fact, let me just go select all, press A, 3D markers to mesh, okay? Now let's jump back into layout. We look here, we got this new tab here, it says tracks, right? Edit. Tracks, and then go to vertex 1, press 1. There it is. We got to select 1, right? Make sure you're on this one here. Select that. So let me just run that down one more time because that was quite confusing. I don't use this method too much, but sometimes this is a good situation to use it. So once we hit the mesh button and track from the tracker menu, we get this new tab here that says tracks. Okay, we click on the tracks, hit tab, go into edit mode, and then make sure you're on vertex. Vertex selects because it's just one little dot vertex. And now we can select our vertex here and we can build some ground here. So if I select like this one, let's say like this one, and select this one and hold shift and select this one. Okay, so I got 4 points selected. And then if I press F, fills geometry, okay? Tab out of edit mode, go back to object mode, and there's my ground plane. Let's jump back into 0, press O0, And here's our ground plane. Now, one thing we need to worry about. Now, if we go back to render mode, okay, here we see we're in the foreground layer. So this is on the foreground. We don't see our background, the ground plane, because it's on the background layer. So if you tap this and go to background, there it is, right? And the reason why we're doing this is because I want to have my shadows separate. I want to render my shadows separately from my CG so I can have control of the shadows when I go to recomposite. But this is not a shadow catcher right now. We need to turn it into a shadow catcher. That's why it's just white. We're not seeing anything. So we come in here. Once we click on that, go to this square here and then scroll down to visibility. And from here, mask shadow catcher. Now it disappears, right? And now it's a shadow catcher, okay? Now we can clearly see I didn't get enough of footage here, or not enough of the plane, which is no big deal because now it's geometry, right? So I can go ahead and press select. Don't want to select all. Let's go into tab face, and I want to select this face, and then I'm gonna go SX and just scroll it up, right? And then even here I can go SY just to get a little bit more. And it's the same thing. We got references for the background here. Look at that. We can build those buildings up, but again, the CG that I'm gonna put in is not needed. But that's a great way to see the depth and how far, in the scene, like we know these are the buildings in the background. So if we had like a spaceship or coming through, we know that this is gonna be the back wall, and that's as far as it goes. All right, guys, sorry about the camera on the last video here, but now what we're going to do is set up our lights. When you first shoot the shot, you should take note of the light, and I did take a couple of still photos just to see where my shadow direction was going, so I knew as a reference. Of course, if you got one of those fancy 3D cameras, or you can do an HDRI capture there, 360 panorama. Unfortunately, I don't have one, so I just do it the old school way by using HDRs and just using some sunlight from Blender. So we got our ground plane here on the background layer, and then on the foreground layer, we have this plane that's on the wall. I'm gonna switch from my background tab to my foreground tab. And there's our plane that we're gonna probably add some CG onto this, whatever. Right now we need to get our shadows and light to line up properly, because that will be the next step before we start building stuff out. And what I like to do is come to the sky, to the background image, and I go ahead and zero that out. I'm gonna add in a sun, Shift A, light, sun. Okay, now what I'm gonna do from here is I wanna get these shadows to line up properly. So we kind of really should build out some crude geometry here, so I can at least get this shadow to kind of help us represent what's going on here. If I was to build this kind of the stand here, which we got going, let me click on that. And what I'm gonna do is drag that onto the background layer for now. I'm gonna jump into the background layer, turn on the render, because we want these to cast a shadow. So this whole collection should be on the foreground layer. Sorry, that should be on the foreground layer because we want that to cast a shadow. So it's on the foreground layer. We want to see this on that background layer on the ground. Let's get our sun in position here. So we got our sun. So our sun is aiming straight down. GZ that up. GY, move that sun back because I knew the sun was behind me. I took note of the sun's position when I shot the footage. And let's rotate on the X. There's our shadow. See it? There's our shadow. Boom. There is our shadow. Okay. Let's try to get our shadow, jump into the camera view, to match. Let's match up our shadows now. So with me having the sun selected, I'm going to go RZ. Now you can see I can rotate that. There's a shadow on the side. Okay. And let's try to get that to line up. I'm going to press RX. If you press RX, there's the up and down angle. And if we go ahead and turn that on and off, we can see those legs should be a lot more smaller too. So that's pretty much how we would get our sun to line up. And the sun, I'm happy with that. We got a shadow, producing there. So let's quickly do a track test here to test out our track. So for example, what I'm going to do, render this out real quick here, just to see if our track is really lining up here. Okay, let's go back to foreground layer. And on my foreground layer, just for the sake of it, let's see I can tell the lighting is still a little bit off, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and load in a HDRI, right? And then I'm gonna go ahead and just creep this in. Let's go like 5. And there it is. That's not looking too bad. I'm gonna grab this piece here. I'm gonna put a piece of texture on it here. I'm gonna go ahead and texture. Matter of fact, I think I'm gonna throw on a checkerboard. All right, I have this checkered material in my asset libraries, which I'm going to drop, which I got from Southern Shoddy in this free material pack. I'm going to throw that on there. And what this is just going to help us to do is just see a little bit better of our markers. So now let's come up in here to the top, view, viewport, render animation. Before that, let's make sure we set it up. Let's go to our output, the folder, make a new folder. And I got that all set up to go. And then what I'm going to do is come in here, go to view, render animation. All right, so that's finished rendering, and then we're gonna go ahead and close that. And you can view it right within inside of Blender, which I'm not a big fan of because the viewer is actually really bad, but let me show you how to do that. You go to render, you go view animation here, and then this is Blender's viewer, which is really weird, and it like distorts the footage, right? The first time it's gonna buffer, so let it buffer through, and the second time, once it's done buffering it, it'll play it through nice and smoothly. So there it is, right? And we can see our track is sitting on there pretty solid. And again, Blender's viewer is a little bit weird. Like, I don't really like it. So what I end up doing is I have a source free one that I found that is actually made for EXRs. It's this free open source program that's made only for EXRs, and it plays them back really nice. It's called DJV viewer. So what that is, I brought in my EXRs. Matter of fact, all I did is double click on one of the files and it knows it's a sequence. So it automatically, now it's loading it in the cache here. If you press backspace, it makes it full screen. And this is a lot more easier to view our stuff, especially when you're using EXRs, because EXRs are kind of hard to, they don't play in a standard player. You'll have to open them like in DaVinci Resolve or something. So I just use this. It's super and easy and quick. So now we can go ahead and just play back here. And then boom, there it is. Now I can see it the proper way. And yeah, our track is nice and solid, guys. So this is the effect that I'm going to be basically going to do here. You can take a look at the full effect, adding these particles. They're just going to be spawning out. It says VFX. All of these elements that I got here for the particle were from ATTI. I've learned the motion graphic effect that I'm using. This was the motivation of me to get this whole video going. And it was here, his free motion design add-on for Blender, which you can download from his GitHub. Take a look at his video. But he runs through this whole process of how to do this particle effect, which is very simple. Again, if you want to check out his channel, give him some support there, because he's a bit of motivation for me to keep doing these really cool, you know, MoGraph / tracking tutorial type things.